Hi, my name is Michael Neece. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Bomo, and I'm joined by the CEO of Bomo and the Head of Recruiting Shared Services at Endeavor, Scott Eliot. Scott, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Scott, good to see you again.
Hey, Eddie.
And Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Scott Eliot. I lead corporate services and digital recruiting for Endeavor globally. There's a lot going on. It would take a lot longer than the 30 or 45 minutes that we have allotted here to explain that. So I won't bore you with that, but yes, there's a lot going on.
And Eddie is the president of Bomo. Eddie, just say a couple of words and then we'll learn a little bit more about Scott's world.
Thank you, Michael. I'm actually the CEO and founder of Bomo. President is our other colleague, Michael Lakshan. Started Bomo many moons ago, working on technology to efficiently help recruiters move quicker, faster, with more data.
All right, so let's get into it. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about the technology stack that some of your recruiters are using at some of the different Endeavor business units?
Of course, LinkedIn Recruiter, I would just say, is probably right now for us the most important tool for the more difficult to find positions. So doing Boolean through LinkedIn Recruiter, it's got a really good reach. Obviously, everybody's in professional services right now most likely has a LinkedIn profile, so it's been a great tool for us. And then on the back end, we use, in terms of our HRIS, Workday. So we use Workday recruiting. That's more of an administrative thing. I would say it still needs to be built out on our end, but it's something that really will help us be more data driven. I think that in the past, before we had jumped into Workday, it had kind of been a bit of a mishmash in terms of tracking data, tracking fills, tracking, okay, where are the, if any, pain points? Where are the areas where we are making the most hires? Where are the areas where we might be not making the most hires or maybe struggling a little bit? So what Workday has been able to do, I would say, is help us with kind of the data-driven metrics behind recruiting. And a big company like Endeavor, now we're publicly traded, I think that definitely helps in terms of looking towards the future and how we're going to build out kind of the recruiting function in the future, how the business is going to continue to build out with so many subsidiaries underneath the Endeavor umbrella. It's integral. So those are really the main two. I mean, we can talk about the, Indeed, of the world, in the Indeeds at Indeed.com or Career Builder, et cetera. But I would say those are kind of the main two tools that we'll typically use, is Workday and LinkedIn Recruiter.
What are consistent challenges that you and your team are facing as you try and fill the need for new hires?
Look, there's a few things. I mean, Endeavor's return to office 4 days per week now. So I think that is a really significant, I think, change for a lot of people. We're coming out of a global pandemic. In the last few years, people had worked from home, or there was a more of a hybrid approach. But I would say over the summertime, or probably even more in the spring, Mark Shapiro, who's our president, basically, we had the global town hall, and they emphasized we're an in-person company. He started as a talent agency with William Morris, WME. And they're advocating for that kind of RTO, that 4 day per week. So it's not every single day. It's not Monday through Friday. It's kind of like you work with your hiring manager, or you work with your line manager and discuss which day you'll be working from home, for example. But look, that's been a challenge because there's other companies out there that have been probably a little bit, at least had a different idea of the, RTO requirements or, what they foresee. Endeavor's pretty adamant about folks being in the office, and we are an in-person company, so those have created challenges because there's people that maybe aren't used to the commute anymore. Even though if we went back 3 years from now, if I told you that you can work from home 1 day per week, you'd probably tell me that's amazing. But the entire perception has changed. So I would say that's a significant challenge that we're facing with our business across the board.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in this transition mindset where it was remote first during the pandemic, and now companies are saying, hey, come back to the office. We're going to go back to the way it was. I'm wondering have you seen any impacts on turnover or difficulty recruiting people that insist that, hey, they only work remote?
Sure. Absolutely. We're seeing it every day. I mean, in terms of turnover, not as much. I would say, Endeavors are really, and again, I work for Endeavor, so I suppose I'm a bit biased here, but it's a really cool company to work for. We've had success with retention throughout this. Of course, there's still going to be folks who maybe are commuting, the commute's too long for them and they just can't do it anymore or something like that. Or somebody just offers them something that's fully remote and, they can't turn it down. I would say the challenge more is kind of, selling the kind of, return to office, whichever office that we're in, for example. I can say, we're a global company, but this is across the board at Endeavor. So we're talking corporate headquarters, Beverly Hills, New York, of course, which is my corporate headquarters. We have some pretty big offices in the US, and there's a few more, of course, but also London. Those are some really significant population headquarters for Endeavor. And, I think what people are looking at is, okay, well, the commute, the offices are in big cities, but what about the traffic? What about, it's things that they wouldn't have thought about 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, that are now kind of coming up.
We've had to address some of these challenges ourselves, Scott, as working together for a number of years now. During the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, things have changed in the market. And I just wanted to ask, how has working with Bomo, has that helped address some of these challenges or some of these pain points?
The organization that I run at Endeavor is built to run lean. And what that means is we have a number of recruiters that are on my team that will kind of handle their own area of expertise. So they're a subject matter expert in IT or finance or legal or something like that. That being said, Endeavor is a huge beast of a company. So, I think what Bomo has really helped us with is kind of supplementing our resources internally with some really good support, from an external, recruiting agency. Time to fill has certainly decreased, which is fantastic, especially when an organization, style like what we run right now, we run it lean. That makes sometimes time to fill a bit longer because that means more recruiters or more recs per recruiter, for example. So I think what Bomo's done is certainly helped us partner with, the hiring managers that we and executive business partners that we partner with already, but really kind of take that day-to-day, digging in the trenches, recruiting from a subject matter expertise. And it certainly helped it's not only saved us time, but it's also kind of saved us money in terms of how long is a role going to be open? Time is money. So that's that's also helped. So appreciate what you guys have done.
It's been an ongoing opportunity to support you guys and work with the different organizations and the different portfolio companies. And we are just big fans of Endeavor and big fans of Ari.
Yeah, we're big fans of Scott Eliot too. How are you and your team measured?
How are we measured? That's a good question. I mean, so it's actually not a Rex filled type of a measurement or anything like that, or interviews, etc. What we look at is how are we, and I guess it's a little bit subjective in that regard, but how do we support our primary businesses? Okay, how do we partner with our hiring managers to make sure we get stuff done, one way or the other? Okay. So of course, at its core, it's filling positions. Okay. And that's what you need to do in order to make people happy. But how do we partner with them? How do we're almost kind of an agency within, our core corporate services, Endeavor is a shared services company. We have probably 30 plus subsidiaries. And what my business, or at least my team, my organization does is we're kind of the centralized function for all of the corporate services, regardless of which area of the business it's in. So how well are we partnering with our our business leaders and giving them the support that they need. How quickly are we filling positions? If we are not having success filling a position, what are we doing to advise and remedy that, and putting a strategy into place to make sure that happens? Whether we utilize an RPO perhaps, or maybe we check out a different type of pipelining tool, or again, another Boolean search, or something else. What is happening? How are we going to kind of remedy, or how are we going to find the right candidate? And I think those are always things that recruiters will deal with, right? But I think we're judged on how well we partner with our business, how well we communicate with our leaders overall. Communication is key. It's probably I would say that the most integral part of our corporate business is communication across the board. What's going on? We have 20 positions over here. We have 30 positions over here. We have 40 positions over here. Okay, how are we going to devise a strategy to handle all that workload with a lean team? And how are we going to set expectations? How are we going to prioritize? And that all kind of starts with communications, with teams being honest. And I think that's what our team has done very well. Is what I've preached is communication, honesty, partnership. Yeah. And I guess that's how we're measured right now.
That's fantastic. You're kind of working in a new environment, in a new world post-pandemic, by implementing a very tried and true method, by having open communication, transparency with the organization within the different groups. I mean, that's fantastic. It's very difficult to do in such a large environment as Endeavor's, but it's also very, it's good to know, good to hear that you guys are successful at it. It's working.
Look, there's always, we're always going to be learning. There's a lot of complexities with our business, right? And we can go on and on, but, essentially, so from a corporate services perspective, you're dealing with a lot of personality, okay? You're working with the HR business partner for whatever business unit you're working on. You're working with the actual business unit that's, Endeavor has various cost centers. So they're supplying or at least they're budgeting for the position from that specific business unit. And then you're working with the hiring manager directly. So it's almost kind of how you work through almost as a conduit between those three areas. So again, it's the relationships. It's managing the relationships, not only managing the relationships, but building relationships and making great connections. I hope that helps. It's really, Endeavor's Endeavor, what I've learned is not like a lot of other businesses. It's a beast. I'm telling you, it's a lot.
Yeah, you're reminding me of when I made the transition to working at an agency, and then after 11 years, then I went internal to Fidelity Investments, and it was a big mindset shift. Whereas at an agency, you're just judged on find the right candidate, deliver it as quickly as possible, fill the rec. Whereas when you're an internal recruiting professional, relationships and communications are paramount. That's the most important thing you can do. And yes, you still have to fill the positions, but it's communications, managing relationships. And
that's what we learn on a day-to-day basis. I'm still learning the complexities of Endeavor's business as well. We had a situation, and I'll go through this really quickly if you want an example.
Sure, love to. Yeah.
So we have our corporate IT function, which is a great function. I've been working here for a little over 4 years. I've worked with them since day one. They're fantastic, but they have kind of their own kind of oversight across the board. They're corporate. They're a corporate function. They will either have the budget to put, let's say, an IT support engineer or something like that on site at one of our properties, let's say on location, which is they do hospitality for the Olympics now, for the Super Bowl, etc. But it's their budget. It's corporate IT's budget, but it's going to be sitting with the on location team. So it's going to be budgeted by one group. So they want to say, it's going to be hired by another group, so they're going to have a say. And then it's with two different HR business partners. Well, I would say one centralized HR business partner, but really essentially two business units. And we're right in the middle of it. And we have to kind of manage those relationships, make sure we set up interviews the right way, make sure we're diplomatic in our approach. Everybody should have a say, but there should be a process. And that's part of our job, is to kind of put that in place and make it so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do and go from there.
So there's been a lot of news about use of things like artificial intelligence. There was a law passed in New York State about the use of technologies like artificial intelligence. Curious, what's your take on the use of technologies during the hiring process?
Technology is integral. Okay. I mean, we're in a world where technology is integral. I would say there's still going to be a human aspect when it comes to recruiting and people in general. So it's the ease of use of the technology. I think that for me is probably as a recruiting leader, is probably the most integral. Is okay, we have a technology here. How is it going to help? I need it to help in a very, again, and I know that sounds very elementary, but how is it going to help? So I have enough going on right now to where, I really would rather not have to learn a completely new technology or system. Of course, there's always going to be a learning curve, but what's the ease of use and how is it going to effectively make myself and my team better? I'm always looking at that in terms of, technology in general, as far as it can help recruiting. That's what we looked at with Workday, of course. We use Microsoft Teams here. We also have Slack channels, et cetera. I know that's not exactly like recruiting functions, but they are integral in terms of communication. So yeah, I mean, it's integral, but there's still, of course, that human aspect that is a requirement for this stuff. And I think it's the ease of use of the technology that I would look for first, and then anything else is secondary.
Are there areas like administrative or repetitive tasks that recruiters have to perform that you'd like to just see them automated?
Absolutely. Meaning, so this is one that I could tell you that's really kind of high on my mind right now. We utilize LinkedIn Recruiter. It's a really great tool. How can we, or is there a way that we can basically take a person that we had found on LinkedIn that we're communicating with and enter them into our HRIS system, our CMS, our candidate management system? Right now, we have to do that manually, or we have to ask them to apply to a position that's in our Workday system. But is there a way that maybe you can kind of click a button, it'll just kind of take the page and maybe parse some information so they kind of go into our pipeline, our management system? I have a feeling that's out there already, but we don't have that. And I think that would certainly be an effective tool.
Yeah. Your that example you gave speaks to the need for integration or data sharing between systems. One thing that you might have already tried this with, when you're on a LinkedIn profile of a candidate, you can export their profile in a PDF. And once exported, then you could upload it into Workday. That may work. A lot of times you get like 85% match of the data field. So there's still going to be some work to the recruiter or whoever's doing the data input. It could shorten that data sharing between systems, but it's still manual.
It would be, but that's still manual. Exactly. So it's basically
still manual.
It's downloading from one system and then going into another system and inputting the information to the other system. Time is money. I don't have that. So what I would rather do is, and which is probably, again, it's, you need in my world, it's kind of like, okay, what are our options here? Okay, we don't have that automated option of integration right now.
Yeah.
So what's the least painful thing to do? And let's do it that way. And again, we need to track the data as well. It's integral. It really is. It's imperative to track the candidates who we're speaking with, to build pipelines. And again, our kind of centralized, our Workday system, we can do that, but it's not built out in a way where, if we really wanted to do some active search, which is what our bread and butter is, as opposed to just fielding applications. And, again, I want to reiterate, our corporate services recruiting function is not administrative. Of course, there are administrative
Okay.
tests, but we are Navy SEALs. I've heard Eddie say that before.
Yeah, I've heard Eddie
We,
say that a couple of times.
we'll go out and we'll find you the best candidates. We will advocate for DE&I, so inclusion. We'll look at metrics. We'll make sure we target, a targeted candidate approach when we're recruiting, as opposed to just fielding applications and saying, okay, well, here's 5 that are good and let's go. There's a lot more to it, and I think that's where we've had success is that active, passive search, if you will, an outreach, for example. Everything else is pretty good in terms of Workday. If we were just to go through applications and things like that, but when it comes to the nitty gritty, when it comes to if we're looking for a software engineer, and again, we have some metrics over here. There's a very low likelihood that we would find a good software engineer through an application. These software engineers out there are not applying to positions actively. You almost kind of have to, obviously the world has changed a little bit now with the, the Metas of the world and the Twitters of the world, laying people off, but it's still not easy to find a good engineer, and you kind of have to do some active searching for it. Let's put it that way. So that, these are things that I look at is, how can we better automate things? If we can't automate them, what's the easiest way of getting our data into a system and tracking it?
Yeah.
Especially for leadership, guys. Ari asks, hey, Scott, I see that this area, we just acquired OpenBet. We see that this area is growing. Can you give me some metrics? Are we going to need any additional recruiters, or maybe we can put something together in terms of an RPO? Because we're going to need to hire another 50 people in order to, and again, I'm not saying that that's the case, but we need to have this data so that we can provide it to leadership to make the right decisions financially for the company. And, if we see something that seems important and seems like it can make a difference one way or the other, we want to have that data ready for leadership so that we can provide it to them so that they can make the best decisions for the company, for the stakeholders.
Do you ever get asked for like benchmark data for what's our competitive employers doing, or what's the market size for how many of these software engineers are in this location? Do you get kind of that market intelligence request from senior leaders at Endeavor?
In terms of the benchmarking for salary, we actually have a benchmarking team for that.
Okay.
But in terms of real time, and again, we're right on we're on the front lines, right? Recruiting. So we see us recruiters, we see the market as it is real time. So we can provide that real time market data. It's not going to be in the most formal sense, but it can be in the in a way. Okay, hey, look, we were looking for a finance director. Here are the candidates that we tried to identify, and here are the ones that maybe are over budget. Here are the ones that are looking to return to, okay with the return to office. Here are the ones that want hybrid. We can provide that data on an ongoing basis. But from a formal standpoint, we do have a benchmarking team that helps us out.
No, okay. All right, great. Yeah, that's a significant commitment of resources to make sure you have your compensation aligned with the market in real time. Look
at the total rewards, yeah, and that's and that's again. Sorry, Mike, to cut you off, but
oh no, go ahead.
That's integral, right? Especially now. I think that's another thing I wanted to mention. I had it on my sheet over here. Was the pay transparency laws that have been put into place in New York and soon to come in other several other states. I know California is going to be a big one. Colorado. There's a few more.
Chicago.
So it's these are things that again we need to continue to track and benchmark for positions, because again the pay transparency, we need to be open on on all job descriptions that are going to be sitting in these areas. Okay, what are the ranges? And you see companies right now that are, I see Citigroup and Morgan Stanley. I've seen some ranges of 25K to 250K, and it's kind of like, okay, I don't know, that's pretty wide range. It's interesting how employers are actually targeting it. And I think with Endeavor, what we've done is we said, look, we got to be honest, and you know what? There's probably going to be some repercussions, as it is, in in any whenever there's change with anything, but we have to do, to the best of our ability, a good faith kind of posting. So if you'll probably see, if you go on our website, any of the new postings that were posted on or after the 1st of November, you'll see the ranges that are in these places where the pay transparency is there. And again, that goes back to benchmarking, because we need to make sure that we have the right benchmarks. Because if we're not getting enough good candidates for the ranges that we're posting, we have to figure something else out.
Is there anything on your list that you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked you about?
I would say going into 2023, we're seeing a bit of a change in the tech market right now. And as you guys might know, so I started at Endeavor as leading the tech and digital teams, and I'm still doing that to a degree. I lead the digital organization as well, but I'm more on the corporate services side. But I do look at the companies, like I mentioned, Meta and Twitter, and there are some other companies out there. I think probably Amazon. I know AWS and Alexa. A few of their companies are maybe not doing as great. They haven't met their marks. So I'm curious what the fallout's going to be there, especially with the economy the way that it is now, and people talking about potentially a small recession in the coming months, or maybe we're already there. So just curious to see what the needs are going to be from Endeavor's business. Again, it's a completely different business than technology. So, media, entertainment, we're so diverse that there's always going to be needs, and there's always going to be growth. Pandemic aside, of course, because that was just an outlier. But what I look for, and what I'm looking at right now is, okay, how can I best prepare myself, and how can I best prepare my team for 2023? What types of positions or what types of requirements is the business going to have, and how can I best anticipate those needs so I can pipeline, for strong candidates for the rest of this year and into next year, so that we get a head start. Maybe start making some connections within the companies that have unfortunately made some layoffs, and there are some really great people that are out there that are looking for jobs. So these are things that are top of mind right now, and it's kind of like, okay, how do we do best by the business? How do we keep our voice, Endeavor's voice out there in the marketplace as a company that people might want to work for? It's a lot of things that we're grappling with, as with the pay transparency, with the return to office. Those are the challenges. But we have what I think is a really cool company. And if you're interested in media and entertainment, come to Endeavor. It'll be pretty cool. Work with me. What's better than that?
Yeah, when we're doing outreach for specific positions, Endeavor positions, if someone has heard of Endeavor, universally their reaction is, oh my God, that's a really cool company. It's universally positive. If they haven't heard of Endeavor yet, and we're telling them about them, the reaction is the same. It's like, wow, that's a really cool company.
A lot of growth opportunity, I can tell you from experience. So you kind of just have to have an interest and a little bit of patience and grow with the company. That's
Eddie. I'm sorry, I've been asking all the questions. Anything you'd like to ask, Scott?
No, I think we've covered it all. I mean, we're just excited for the road ahead, Scott. Looking forward to 2023, some of these advances in not only like labor laws in the city and across the country, pay transparency, but also folks getting back to the office. I think there's something that was lost during the pandemic where we were all kind of sitting alone in our homes. It's great to kind of get out there again and back into an office to shake someone's hand and communicate in person. And Zoom is nice, but nothing beats in-person get together. And I'm, thankful and grateful that we're all safe and sound, and I'm looking forward to a very busy 2023 together. Thank you again for the opportunity and for the relationship, to grow and support Endeavor and many different companies as best we can. I'm also very excited to talk more about Bomo and Interview Mastery as we go forward next year, and to show you all the capabilities and some of the things that you've been mentioning and talking about. I suspect we'll be able to kind of show you with a click of a button, as long as it's simple, easy to use, and makes the recruiters more efficient and better at what they're doing. That's what we're working on now. Very, very exciting stuff ahead. Thank you for sharing, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Scott,
having me.
thanks for investing your time with us. We appreciate your insights and appreciate you taking the time to speak with Eddie and I, and
Always.
look forward to doing great work together.
Likewise. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.